Hey, what's up you guys? It's been a little while since I filmed a video like this, sitting down and talking. Today we're going to do my April wrap up. I was going to skip it. I was like, you know what, it's been too late. It's literally the 31st of May as I'm filming this, but I have not missed a single month's wrap up since I started BookTube in January 2019. Apart from September 2019, I think it was, I didn't read a single book, so obviously I had nothing to talk about. But we're here today, we're going to do an April wrap up. I'm obviously not going to talk about every single book that I read in April. We're just going to talk about like the highlights that I actually care about. You know, sometimes you read a book and it just flies about your brain. But today we're going to talk about the ones I actually want to talk about from April, and then I think hopefully I'll film my May wrap up today as well, just like get it done. So yeah, I hope everyone's good. I'm doing good. Hope you're doing good. Every single time I've tried to film this intro, I've rambled on and on and on, so I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to say all the links to all my social media and stuff are in the description. And if you enjoy this video, please leave a like, please subscribe. Definitely leave a comment talking about any of these books if you have any thoughts on them. And yeah, let's get started talking about my first book. The first book I'm going to talk about is Paperbacks from Hell by Grady Hendrix. And I have been making my way through basically all of Grady Hendrix books, mostly on audiobook, and this was just another one on Audible, included with a membership, so I stuck it on knowing nothing about it. And for some reason, I had in my head this was going to be a like short story collection. It is not, it is non-fiction, but which was totally surprising to me. But I actually really enjoyed it. He goes quite deep into talking about paperback horror books from the 70s and 80s, and obviously he talks about like really famous authors like Anne Rice and Stephen King, but then he goes into like really obscure, weird, grotesque, like sexual, strange books that came out at the time that, you know, were the type of ones that people read and then completely forgot about. And I actually really enjoyed it. I think that his writing style is quite humorous, and it really lended itself well to non-fiction because it never felt like you were reading or listening to like an essay about these books. It was very like humorous. It was like, how weird is this? Like, look at this one, like that's quite funny. He like gave like some humorous like descriptions of what the books were about and stuff. But then he'd also kind of go into like the state of publishing and, you know, like what authors were kind of receiving at the time and stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting. It's all about like the big publishers, like and how like, or like the big publishers for like that kind of horror. So like smaller publishers, but then like the actual bigger publishers like kind of came and like took over, and just, you know, a lot of history about books. And I thought it was really interesting. I was obviously completely surprised because it's not what I was expecting, but I would actually definitely recommend it. Even if you're not someone that like cares about non-fiction, I think this was written in a very interesting and fun way where, you know, it just felt like, I don't know, it was just fun. You know, it wasn't like loads of facts, it wasn't like heavy like historical details, it was just like a fun non-fiction book. So yeah, like I said, a very pleasant surprise. Another book that I read in April was The Birds and Other Stories by Daphne the Maurier, and this one actually was a short story collection, but I just want to talk about The Birds because, oh my god, you guys, this is obviously like a really famous short story and obviously movie because Alfred Hitchcock directed it, and I had heard about it. I basically knew what it was about. You know, it's about birds like going crazy and like no one can control them, and they're like murderous and are trying to attack other people. And I, you know, I knew that premise and I was like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting, but like how scary can it be? Guys, I put this book down and I just had to sit there for like 10 minutes just like stare into space, like thinking like, oh my god, like if this actually happened in real life, it would be over. Like, especially I was thinking about my own house, and like, so in the book, I don't want to spoil things, obviously, like it's a really short story, but like to try and keep the birds out, they're like hammering like wooden planks over the windows and stuff, and I was like, oh my god, you could not hammer like wooden planks into like my windows, like it's all brick with like plastic around it. Like, oh my god, I just started thinking, like visualizing like the birds like attacking, and like the birds doing this, the birds doing that, like the big birds of prey like swooping down, picking kids up and stuff, and I was like, birds are actually really scary. Like, I was so impressed by this book. I thought like the atmosphere was incredible. I loved the characters actually. All these short stories, like that's what I would say about all of them as a whole. Like they were very immersive, amazing, like detailed characters for short stories. Genuinely scary, some of them, and like the ones that weren't scary were like really intriguing. Like all of them were just really good, and the birds especially. Like I'm not exaggerating. I put the book down. I was like, my heart was racing a little bit. I was so like, what? Like I was just amazed. I was like, how can you turn like something as ordinary as a bird into like such a scary monster? Like I've read a lot of like different horror books about different things, and for some reason like the birds, I think it's because it is like so realistic, because they're not supernatural creatures, like they're birds. Like something about it really got to me. So I would highly recommend The Birds and Other Stories by Daphne du Maurier. Yeah, very, very good. In April, I also finally finished Read Comet, The Life of Sylvia Plath by Heather Clark, and I absolutely love this. As you will probably know if you're a subscriber to my channel, I'm obsessed with Sylvia Plath. I love her. I've read all of her poetry at this point. The Bell Jar is like my favourite book ever. I still have to read quite a lot of her short stories, but you know, I just cannot get enough of Sylvia Plath. I think she's just a fascinating like historical person, and like her life is just so interesting, as you probably know because she's very famous. So yeah, this was like over 1,000 pages, although I think it was like 1,200, but about 250 of those pages were like notes and references. So it was just under 1,000 like actual pages, but also it was like really tall, it was like this size, so I'm saying it was over 1,000. And I absolutely loved this. I would say if you're not someone that's obsessed with Sylvia Plath, it went into like a lot of detail, like probably more detail than the average reader would ever care to know. But as someone that's like fascinated by her and her life, it was amazing. It was like just so beautifully like constructed, like there was like no stone left unturned. You just know that Heather Clark, like this is like her magnum opus. Like I was just so impressed with like how she managed to pull all these like sources and everything together. She goes through like all Sylvia's journals and letters and like interviews with like her family and friends, and you know like other people's like autobiographies and stuff that Sylvia has mentioned in, like everything that ever mentioned Sylvia Plath ever, she referenced in this book, and I was just so impressed. It is amazing. Obviously, like I said, I'm gonna repeat myself now, but like if you're not obsessed with Sylvia Plath, you'll be like, oh my god, get to the point. Because like I think the first, I don't know if it's just the first one chapter or the first two chapters, but maybe like the first 70 pages, like Sylvia's not even born yet. Like it goes into like her family history, like her grandparents and like where they immigrated from and everything. Like there's so much detail here that I know for a fact people are going to be like, where is the story about Sylvia? But as someone that, you know, loves her, I absolutely love this book. I also read a very, very popular YA book in April, and that was Simon versus the Homo sapiens Agenda by Becky Albertalli. And I definitely understand why like this is so hyped up. I thought it was so cute. I loved it. If you don't know, it is about these two high school boys who both know that they're gay, but they talk like anonymously via email, and they don't know who each other are, and hijinks ensue because someone finds Simon's email and then kind of starts to blackmail him a little bit, and there's a lot to it. It's actually a little bit dark in some points, like most stories get, but there's a happy ending in the end, and I really loved it. I thought that like the whole cast of characters were so like dynamic and captivating and just like really captured your heart. And what I actually really enjoyed, which I know for some people is probably very hit or miss, but I really loved reading the emails between Simon and Blue. I think that these kind of informal email type situations like really get you deep into a character's head in a way that the author, when they're just writing like third person or even first person prose, can't really do, because emails like that are in universe kind of allow the author to break down the character into like much more simplistic, like realistic way of speaking and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed that, and I actually have to thank 50 Shades of Grey for making me like that kind of thing, because 50 Shades of Grey was like full of emails between Christian and Anastasia, and I actually just came to love that kind of writing style. But yeah, I really liked all the characters, although I will say that Simon's friends, like, they suck. I'd already seen the movie, so I already knew what happened, and I already kind of knew the whole plot, because the movie is very faithful to the book. But yeah, Simon's friends kind of suck. Like, they're not very supportive at first, which is annoying, but overall, it's a really good story. I feel like most people have probably read it at this point, but if you haven't, and, you know, you like YA, I would say it's worth a read. Another YA book that I definitely recommend is Heroine by Mindy McGuinness. This is about our main character, Mickey, who is like a star athlete at school, and she is in a car accident that breaks her leg, and she ends up taking pain medication and then slowly becomes addicted to that pain medication, and then things spiral from there. And I just really love this book. I thought Mickey was such an interesting character because her progression from like star athlete to drug addict was really tragic, but the way it was written was really believable. Like, you understood like why she's making every decision that she made, because she was in a lot of pain. Like, her leg is like not just like a little break, like it is like broken. She gets like metal screws and stuff in it, and you know, she's an athlete, like she absolutely loves sports. It's like what she loves for, so you understand like why she ends up abusing the pain medication and stuff. And I also really loved all the side characters. So she has quite an untraditional family. She lives with her mum, but her mum and dad are divorced, and then there's like a stepmom involved, but everyone really wants the best for her. Like she has a really loving family, and then at first all of her teammates like love her, like she has like a really supportive like group of friends. But that really sells the tragedy of the story, because she then like pushes everyone away. She gets very secretive, like, you know, she is really struggling and she cuts everyone out, and that really sells like the tragedy of the story, because you know like she has all the support around her if she would just like reach out for help. But she gets in so deep, and I just really loved it. I thought the story was really well written, because it obviously has a strong like anti-drug message to it, but it doesn't like beat you over the head with that. It's just very natural. It's like, okay, look at like how this girl's life ended up because of drug addiction. It's not like, don't ever do drugs, which I appreciated, like the way it was written. I just thought it was well balanced, you know. It doesn't like completely, you know, like demonize like drug users. Like it says like, okay, this is like a really sad situation that she's got herself into, and she just needs like help and support to try and get her life back on track. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think that McGinnis is a very talented writer, and I definitely want to read more by her in the future. And obviously it's a bit of a sensitive subject, this book, but if you're up for reading it, I would definitely recommend it. The last book I'm going to talk about today is one that is so different from everything else I've ever read, and that is No Bad Parts: Healing Trauma and Restoring Wholeness with the Internal Families System by Dr. Richard Schwartz. I had to read that. I was not going to remember that off the top of my head. But this was kind of, I don't want to call it a self-help book, but there definitely was elements of like self-help to it. But it's very psychological, and all about, you know, this method of therapy called the internal family systems. And I will not do a good job explaining it at all. And I will say it's one of those books and one of those kind of theories and practices that sounds so outlandish at first, but there's exercises throughout the book that you do along with it, and you realize like it actually is very helpful. So basically, Dr. Schwartz talks about how in your body you have all these different parts, and you know, there's different like protectors and firefighters, and like every emotion is like its own part, and they're all like living inside of you. And you can actually talk to these parts and really listen to them, and they will speak to you and like tell you, like, you know, so if you're feeling upset, you can ask to talk to that part of you. And I feel ridiculous trying to explain this, and like ask it what's wrong, but like it's like a kind of a conversation, and it sounds so weird, and I'm not going to do a good job explaining it, but I thought it was really great. I really enjoyed it. However, I will say the deeper into the book I got, I listened to this on audiobook as well. I don't know what the physical book would be like. I really liked the audiobook because it would like talk you through the practices and stuff rather than just reading it. And there was also what I thought was interesting, sorry, I'll come back to my point. There was transcriptions of real therapy sessions that he's had with patients where they've used this and had like amazing results. So yeah, so the exercises that you do with the book, at first they were really working for me. Like I really was so impressed. I was loving it. I was like, this is amazing. But the deeper we got into it, I started to struggle being able to do them by myself because they got a bit more complicated. They asked a bit more of you. And I don't know if I was really like in the headspace to be able to do it at the time, but I did struggle a little bit as the book went on. But I will say, like, I was still so fascinated by like this whole idea and method. I truly believe like it could do a lot of good to people. It's definitely like something that's worth reading about if you know, have dealt with trauma in any way, like big T trauma, little T trauma, like everyone's went through stuff. And I think that it was really fascinating and, you know, just so different from everything else I've ever listened to. So yeah, I hope I've explained this okay. It's quite a complicated thing to try and explain. And it sounds so ridiculous. Like at first you're like, this is crazy. Like having a conversation with like a part in your head, like you're like, okay, this is a bit iffy. But honestly, if you go with it and you just go with like an open mind, it's actually really interesting. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like and please subscribe for future videos. And like I said at the start, if you have any thoughts on any of the books that I talked about in this video, please leave them in the comments down below. I would love to chat. And if you want to see my book reviews for every book I read, they're all on Goodreads. I write full reviews for every single book I also have started a letterboxd account, so if you're into movies, that'll be linked down below as well. And again, I've been writing a review for every movie I've been reading, every movie I've been watching, which is pretty fun. I'm quite enjoying that. I just love writing reviews and like keeping a log of things. I'm very like into like categorizing things, making lists, you know, just keeping track of things. I think it's fun. So yeah, thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next video.